during this period of economic growth, social change, and the Great Depression, just to name a few. This is course number 3017, David Hemsfield.
Thank you. This is the course for the liberal arts students. The prior one was for the science students. But this is going to be a history course covering American history of the 1920s and 30s. These were very eventful years. I think I found, and I think many of you will find, studying these years of particular interest since we have some personal familiarity with them. Our parents and grandparents lived through them, and they're widely portrayed now in popular culture. If you watch Turner Classic Movies, you can see a lot of what was going on in the 20s and 30s. In the popular history and culture, the 20s are generally described as the jazz age or the roaring 20s, and the 30s are the years of the Great Depression and the New Deal. These labels have some truth to them, and we'll cover that, but we'll also cover a more complete story of some of the complexities and divisiveness of these periods, particularly with respect to the 1920s. Although there was a lot of prosperity, it was not uniform, and many farmers and workers did not thrive and do well. There was considerable prejudice and discrimination during this period against minorities, African Americans, Jews, immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe, and Catholics. There were culture wars over those who supported and those who opposed the new permissive lifestyle. We're going to cover a number of events in which these divisions and complexities were exposed. Prohibition, the development of the Ku Klux Klan in the North, which in the North the Klan was, they were against blacks, but they were also very much against Catholics and immigrants and Jews as well. We're going to cover the Scopes trial, the showdown between the fundamentalists and those with the more secular or liberal view. We're going to cover the anti-Semitic campaigns of Henry Ford, where anti-Semitic literature was placed in Ford dealerships, among other things. In the 1930s, we're going to consider the programs that the New Deal adopted to combat the Depression. We're going to learn that these programs did not have a single unifying philosophy. There was a lot of, the philosophy was be active and try something, try anything, and if it doesn't work, try something else. Programs had some success in ending the economic downfall, but not completely. By the eve of World War I, there was still, World War II, there was still 10% unemployment. We're going to consider the role of the Supreme Court during the 1930s in the Roosevelt's first term, decisions that declared that many critical parts of the New Deal were unconstitutional, and then the switch after 1936 where they upheld New Deal measures, and FDR's court packing plan, which didn't pass and proved to destroy his public reputation and political strength. We're going to consider the growth of organized labor during the 1930s, where labor membership rose from about 10% of the workforce to 25%, and there was a lot of violence, sit-in demonstrations. We're going to consider the role of the Communist Party during the 1930s. This was a peak period of Communist Party influence, both from active membership and membership in Communist Front organizations, which were controlled by the Communist Party, but just supported positions that the Communists supported. And finally, we're going to spend about a session on divisions in foreign policy, the long dispute between the isolationists and the interventionists about whether we would get into the fight against expansion by the Nazis and by Japan, and the dispute persisted until the eve of World War II, and was not really resolved until the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor forced us into the war. So these are some of these issues I plan to discuss. I learned a lot from putting this course together, and I hope that those of you who come will share that enthusiasm. Thank you.